There is one more leader who's not coming. Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. He wanted to attend the G20 summit, but he did not get an invite. Ukraine is not a G20 member, although the war in Ukraine will feature prominently in the conversations this weekend. And just ahead of the summit, there's been a shakeup in Kiev. The defense minister has been sacked. His name is Oleksiy Reznikov. Reznikov was made defense minister in November 2021, and during the war, he emerged as an important figure. He built up support for Ukraine in the West. One of his key tasks was to lobby for powerful weapons, and he did it. But in recent weeks, some reports emerged. They said his days in the defense ministry were numbered. And yesterday, President Zelensky put an end to the speculation. He confirmed Reznikov's exit.
This week, the parliament will be asked to make a staff-related decision. I would like to outline it now. I have decided to replace the defense minister of Ukraine. Oleksiy Reznikov has been through more than 550 days of full-scale war. I believe that the ministry needs new approaches and other formats of interaction with both the military and society as a whole.
A new approach, that's what the president wants. And it is a fact that the current approach is not working. A few weeks back, Ukraine launched a counter-offensive. There was a lot of hype around it. They wanted to retake occupied territory. They wanted to push the Russians back. None of it is happening. It proved to be a costly and futile exercise. And now there's going to be a change of guard. Does that mean Ukraine will wrap up the counter-offensive? It's hard to say, but one thing is quite clear. Reznikov's exit is not just about military strategy. It is also about other things. There is more to the story. Two broad reasons behind his exit: corruption and narrative building. Now, corruption is an old issue in Ukraine, especially in the defense establishment. It is mired in graft cases. There have been serious allegations. One of the cases is about military rations. They were bought at inflated prices. And what was the value of this contract? More than $1 billion. The case came to light earlier this year, and soon it snowballed into a major controversy. Reznikov was the defense minister then, but he did not sign the contract, and yet he was the one who came under fire for it. The civil society criticized him. They said the buck stops with the defense minister. He, on his part, called it a smear campaign. He pushed back against the criticism, but he wasn't really able to sway public opinion. Because this is not a one-off. Ukraine's army is plagued by corruption. Multiple scandals have come to light. Corruption in medical exemptions was investigated. Conscription officials were caught taking bribes. And some cases are truly incredible, like this one. Ukraine's enlistment offices were audited. One recruitment chief was caught. Doing what? Using soldiers as his personal servants. They were sent to his private estate and used in construction activity. Soldiers. All of this happened on Reznikov's watch. So while he wasn't personally implicated in any case, on the anti-corruption front, he seemed ineffective. And perhaps Zelensky thought a change was necessary. Also, Western allies have poured billions of dollars into this war. The last thing they would want is for that money to be lost in corruption. And they would ask questions if they're not asking them already. Hence the sacking. Reason number two could be the need to build a new narrative. Meet Rustem Umerov, the man who will be Ukraine's new defense minister. He used to be an investment banker and a member of Ukraine's opposition. But since the beginning of this war, Umerov has donned the hat of a negotiator. He's been involved in prisoner exchanges. Also, the Black Sea grain deal, the one brokered by the United Nations, a deal to secure grain exports from Ukraine to the world. Umerov was Ukraine's chief negotiator for that deal. Recently, that deal fell apart. Russia walked out, and talks are on to revive it. So why did Zelensky choose this man for the defense minister's post? Is he preparing to negotiate with Russia? Well, it's a possibility. Kiev could also be trying to send a message to Moscow. Umerov belongs to the Crimean Tatar community. It's an ethnic group in Crimea, a region that Russia took in 2014. They annexed it in 2014. And since then, these Crimeans are said to have been persecuted. Umerov has been speaking about this. In fact, I have a quote from him from 2021. He said, "The deportation of Crimean Tatars is one of the greatest crimes of the Soviet regime. It was started by the tyrants in power at that time in order to exterminate an entire nation." So this appointment could be a political message. And what happens to Reznikov? He could get a different job. Some reports say he could be Ukraine's next ambassador to the UK. We'll have to wait and see. Either way, Zelensky is shifting gears. What about Russia? Their President Vladimir Putin is not coming to the G20 either, although he did get an invite. Instead, Putin is going to China next month. And ahead of that visit, China is extending more support to Moscow. Russian banks are raising money from China. Leading Chinese banks have stepped in. They're giving loans worth billions to Moscow. Which banks are these? Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, Bank of China, China Construction Bank, and Agricultural Bank of China. These are among China's top banks. How much is their exposure to Russian banks? Almost $10 billion now. Russia depends more on Chinese banks now. It says it does not want to trade in what it calls toxic currencies. That's the term they use, toxic currencies, like the dollar and the euro. Trade between Russia and China has also grown. Chinese exports to Russia have risen. And what are the Russians buying? Things like microchips, trench digging excavators, goods that can potentially be used by the Russian military. These are called dual-use goods. They have both civilian and military applications. This is what China is giving to Russia. And Moscow can use all the support it gets as the war takes a new turn. Yet another drone attack was reported today on a building in Kurchatov. This is near the Ukraine border. Reports say Russia's intelligence services were using this building. The attack did not cause a lot of physical damage, but perhaps that was not even the idea. Ukraine has taken the war inside Russia. It has changed its defense minister, and it's working on building a new narrative. Expect more action in the weeks ahead.